A very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1 for the Newsfirst, where the people come first. I'm Martin Satyanesan.
And I'm Piruni Karnaratna. Here are tonight's top stories.
President presents credentials to newly appointed Anunayaka of the Askiri chapter, Venerable Naram Panave Anandathero. President says corrupt rule must end to safeguard lawful governance. Colombo stock market indices records all-time high. Seaplane service from Beira Lake to Katunayaka. Government invites private sector to invest in domestic flights. CID takes custody of 2 hidden firearms of Panadura Nilanga. Government announces plans to restart partially completed housing projects.
On to those stories in detail. Credentials were presented this evening to the newly appointed Anunayaka of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Naram Panave Anandathero. The ceremony was held under the leadership of President Anurukumara Dissanayaka. The event was broadcast live on Sirasa TV.
The ceremony to present credentials to the Anunayaka Thera was held at the Mughal Madua in Kandy. The Anunayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters were present along with the Mahasangha. The credential was announced by General Secretary of the Askiri chapter of the Siam sect, Most Venerable Madagama Dhammananda Thera.
The
President assured the Mahasangha that the long-standing misrule plaguing the country will finally come to an end.
If we delve further into this society, we can understand to what destructive extremes this society has been engulfed. On one hand, there is a government established under the constitution. Similarly, though not as strong on the surface, there exists within the country a dark rule that possesses all the apparatus and mechanisms of government. For the sake of lawful governance and security, this dark rule must be brought to an end. I believe our government has chosen that path. I assure our Venerable Mahasangha that the steps taken for this purpose will never be reversed. The reason is that, as recent reports have revealed, this dark rule has pushed society to a level of extreme destruction, creating widespread turmoil. There are youths in society who are so prepared mentally they can handle firearms and weaponry, amassed through unlawful means including drugs, arms and illegal properties, and shoot people at various locations. That is why I believe if this society is to be made righteous, this dark rule must be ended. To prevent such governance and such conditions from recurring, there is a tremendous responsibility on our Venerable Mahasangha in purifying the society, cleansing it and guiding it towards a renewed and a revived social order.
The President stated that a national program must be established to control drugs and that the temple has been entrusted with a significant responsibility for this purpose.
We cannot move forward with this broken society. Fortunately, to some extent, we have been given the ability to open the door regarding these drugs. These were iron doors. They were so heavily ironed that we could neither touch them nor approach them closely. Now, the police, including our Inspector General of Police, have succeeded in opening this door. Once the door was opened, we could understand the deplorable state inside that had been hidden behind it. A whole generation of young people were involved in a massive network with cocaine production factories, firearms, ammunition, containers with raw materials for cocaine production, unpacked firearms and drugs weighing hundreds of kilos. There is a very small number of officers of police, security forces and the state service linked to this network. Now we have the choice to close the door again and pretend that this is not the case, Alternatively, we can take steps forward without reversing what has already been done. We have chosen the latter. I believe that for this purpose, we need a broad national initiative. This national effort must put an end to the drug epidemic. Tens of thousands of young men and women aged 16 to 21 have been trapped in this. In some schools, teachers know that students are taking drugs, but the school teacher does not take action. The teacher is afraid. Why? Because if action is taken, who knows what might happen outside. In some universities, drugs are sold inside lecture halls. That is why educational institutions have become centers for drug distribution. In some rooms we are aware of, whenever there is a cultural event where young men or women gather, drugs have become the main tool involved. As a result, this has become an addiction embedded within society. Therefore, to halt this social addiction, we have the objective of establishing a massive national enterprise. We are informing everyone, those addicted and those selling, to step away. The whole of society must be vigilant for this purpose. Those addicted to and selling these drugs will step away. I believe we must begin this great struggle. In that effort, I believe the responsibility entrusted to our Venerable Mahasangha is even greater than that of the government.
අපි ආරම්භ කළ යුතු කියලා මම විශ්වාස කරනවා. අන්නේදී අපි හාමුදුරන් වහන්සේලාට පැවරෙන කාර්යභාරය රජයේ කාර්යභාරයටත් වඩා විශාලයි කියලා මම හිතනවා.
The credentials were presented to Venerable Narampanawe Ananda Thera by President Anura Kumar Disanayaka.
මේ මහා මූලස්ථාන දෙක මේ රටේ
These two ancient temples, along with the Bhikkhu traditions and the manner in which they have historically safeguarded their disciplinary responsibilities throughout their lives, are properly documented throughout history. Such monastic duties, which have been historically maintained, are still upheld today. And these temples continue to fulfill these sacred duties in the present, carrying forward that historical responsibility. What is being entrusted to us today is once again the responsibility to give meaningful expression in the present to the monastic duties that have historically been carried out by our temples, and to carry out this noble work responsibly.
Prior to attending the ceremony to present credentials to the newly appointed Anunayaka of the Askiri chapter, the President called on the Mahanayaka Theras of the Malwatu and Askiri chapters. The President, upon arriving at the Malwatu Mahaviharaya, called on the Malwatu Mahanayaka, Most Venerable Thibbatuwave Sri Sumangala Thera, and engaged in a cordial conversation. Thereafter, he visited the Askiri Mahaviharaya and called on Askiri Mahanayaka, Most Venerable Varakagoda Sri Jnana Ratana Thera, and engaged in a cordial conversation.
Newsfirst, with the people.
Both major stock market indices soared to record-breaking highs today.
By the close of trading today, the all-share price index had surpassed the 22,000-point mark. The S&P SL 20 index closed the day at 6,200 points. Market turnover stood at 9.7 billion rupees.
A seaplane service from Colombo to Katunayaka was relaunched today.
Seaplane service from Colombo to Katunayaka was relaunched today under the patronage of the Minister of Transport, Highways, Ports and Civil Aviation, Bimal Ratnayaka. Also present at the occasion were the Deputy Minister of Ports and Civil Aviation, Ruwan Kurituaku, Deputy Minister of Tourism, Professor Ruwan Ranasinghe, and Defence Secretary, retired Air Vice Marshal Sampath Tuyakonta. A Cessna 208 aircraft joined the inaugural flight departing from Katunayaka.
I was informed that it is as the result of about 12 years of hard work that flights are now able to operate to the Bere Lake in this manner. Therefore, as a government, we are clearly committed to developing domestic air services within Sri Lanka. We invite all companies, especially Palali, as well as the Sri Lanka Air Force, which has a large number of airports. In addition, there are reservoirs of considerable size here. Therefore, without any delay, fraud or corruption, we believe it is possible to operate this as a business. As a government, we are prepared to provide all necessary approvals and facilities to the fullest extent.
කොළඹ කියන්නේ අපේ කොමර්ෂල් හබ් එක ගොඩක් සංචාරකයන් ඉස්සෙල්ලාම ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ නම.
This is Colombo, which is our commercial hub. Most tourists first arrange their accommodation in the Colombo city. From there, they are directed to other areas such as Nurelia or Sigiriya for sightseeing and travel purposes. Therefore, we are providing an opportunity that can fully meet this need in the tourism industry. Accordingly, the time spent on their travel can be significantly reduced. Moving forward, we hope to further expand and operate this flight operation that supports the tourism industry, fully complying with all security regulations.
දෙන්නේ සියලුම ආරක්ෂක විධිවිධානවලට යටත්ව.
Minister of Public Security Anand Vijaypala says the data obtained from 31 mobile phones used by recently arrested criminals is being utilized to further investigate into drug-related activities and other crimes.
As you know, in recent days, several organized criminals were brought back to the country. We are now analyzing data from 31 mobile phones seized from them, and investigations are progressing based on that information. If these investigations uncover any political link, the government will not hesitate to act against those politicians. There is no need for anyone to be afraid or panicked. If someone is, it may indicate certain connections with these criminals. The investigations are still ongoing and will continue with the data obtained. Regardless of a person's status, anyone found involved in illegal or criminal activities will face action.
2 firearms have been recovered based on information provided by Panadura Lanka, who is currently in remand custody. The weapons were seized in Panadura. The Criminal Investigation Department stated that one of the firearms resembles an M1911 type gun, while the other is a stone pellet type firearm.
Meanwhile, Deputy Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government Ruwan Senarath says that while the police and other security agencies are taking strict measures to curb drug trafficking, anyone attempting to disrupt these operations through false or baseless allegations will face severe legal action. He made these remarks in response to accusations being levelled by certain parties, including the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna.
This is the newest drama, either taking containers to Tangol to manufacture drugs or bringing raw materials to make ice. A member of parliament from the Pohuttua allegedly kept these materials. We requested an investigation. From the very first day we took disciplinary actions. That's why we don't want anyone taking the law into their own hands. Investigate, yes, but using it is different. The investigation and the use are two separate things. Where is the Puak Dandave Sana now? What is Sanath Veerasinghe posting on Facebook? On Facebook, he is praising the president, attacking the Pohuttua and attacking Namal Rajapaksa. This is not just yesterday. It goes back to September. Investigate this. Then the Facebook account operating under the name Sana or Sanath Veerasinghe has been praising the president for so long. We don't even know whether the president invited them home to eat or not. However, Vimal Veeravansa says that if he goes to Hambantota or Tangol, he'll eat at Puak Dandave Sana. So is the government supposed to be dragged into these talks?
This is the government's response to these allegations.
The person known as Puak Dandave Sana is being claimed to have connections with the National People's Power and that he attends events where the president came, eating and drinking there. I think we need to see who actually said this. The people who ruined their lives and political careers are now planning again to guard the Rajapaksa camp. However, whatever they attempt to make to guard it, especially regarding his statements, we say it is very serious, because for no reason at all, we assure with responsibility that the NPP has no connection whatsoever with this individual. Likewise, the story that President Anukumara Dissanayaka's brother came to this district and ate and drank at that house is false. We responsibly state that neither he nor any of our leaders went to that house. There is no political connection whatsoever. Therefore, I am specifically requesting the CID to take him into custody immediately and conduct an investigation to get proper answers. It must be clearly explained to the country whether the president or any leader of the NPP went to that house, ate there on which day and at what time. This is a serious statement. It is a statement that could mislead the people of this country. That is why, throughout history, he has done this, and he continues to do so even now.
Former governor of the North Central Province, Mahipala Herath, has instructed to demolish and remove several constructions that were carried out within the Periyamkulama Tank Reserve.
In accordance with the government policy decision marking the boundaries of the tank reserves of 48 ancient tanks across the country began on 19th of July. Under this initiative, boundary marking for tanks in the districts of Anuradhapura, Hambantota, Galle, Trincomalee, Mana and Polonnaruwa is scheduled to be carried out this year. Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation K.D. Lalkantha stated that all individuals residing illegally in the tank reserves can take steps to vacate voluntarily. Similarly, Deputy Minister of Lands and Irrigation Dr. Susil Ranasinghe said that politicians have carried out various unauthorized constructions in several tank reserves across the island. Accordingly, the marking of the boundaries of the Anuradhapura Peramiyankulama Tank Reserve began recently. It has been revealed that former governor of the North Central Province, Mahipala Herath, had constructed a building in the name of his wife, Ajanta Rupasari Herath, in the tank reserve without any legal documentation. Divisional Secretary of the Nuvaragam Palatha Central, Sudarshana Disanayaka, had issued a letter on the 18th instructing Ajanta Rupasari Herath to demolish the building in question. It has now been revealed that the land in question in 60 perches and a hotel was planned to be built there. The Electricity Board has also supplied electricity to these unauthorized constructions in the tank reserve. Divisional Secretary Sudarshana Disanayaka noted in the letter that if steps were not taken to remove the constructions, official action would be initiated. The Department of Agrarian Services was also informed to take necessary action in this regard. Less than a month after the notification was issued, the constructions have now been demolished. The demolitions were carried out by the party of former Governor Mahipala Herath. By now, all surveying activities at the Peramiyankulama Tank Reserve has now been completed and the boundary stones have been set in place.
Newsfirst, main sponsor.
A trusted place for your fixed deposits. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability. A trusted place for your fixed deposits. Valuable FD, 10.25% for 15 months, 11% for 24 months. Valuable FD, the symbol of stability.
The Teacher and Principal Appreciation event, Guru Pratibha Prabha 2025, was held in Colombo today under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya.
At the event, 173 principals who go above and beyond their duties, making notable sacrifices for the educational sector, were formally recognized.
The entire ministry is working tirelessly to improve the quality of education in our country. This cannot be achieved merely by changing the subjects. We must intervene to address the shortcomings and weaknesses of the system. We fully understand the need to protect the profession and enhance the professionalism of principals, who play a critical role in this system. We recognize that fundamentally a salary that allows for a decent standard of living is essential. Everyone should receive a salary that enables them to lead a comfortable life. In addition, teacher training and the provision of basic facilities are necessary. We are discussing how these training centers can also contribute to providing these resources, and we are actively working on it. Recruitment has been stalled for the past 5 years. We have now resolved this issue to some extent and can quickly fill teacher vacancies. We are already managing recruitment for teacher education and the education administrative services. We also plan to introduce digitalization in the education sector. At the provincial level, we are identifying the necessary infrastructure and hope to provide it soon. By the end of this year, we plan to provide connections and the required infrastructure to all secondary schools. I am not suggesting that everything can be accomplished immediately, within 24 hours, but that is our goal.
Deputy Minister of Housing T.B. Sirasa says that information will be gathered on housing projects that were partially completed and abandoned during the previous government, and work to complete essential housing projects from those will commence next year. He expressed his views while attending a house ownership certificate distribution ceremony held today in Trincomalee.
The housing development program, implemented under the concept of a home of one's own, a beautiful life, is aimed at providing 1,000 houses and 1,000 land deeds.
Therefore, from a political perspective, our focus is not simply on handing over houses randomly, building roads here and there, or constructing a law somewhere. What we need is proper urban planning and residential planning. Previously, plots of lands were taken from somewhere, a few parcels were allocated here and there, and that was considered enough. People who received lands or houses were left to manage on their own. As a government, we are not operating as a political enterprise. We can see today that in many villages across the Trincomalee district, houses, land and other assistance were distributed purely for political purposes. For example, housing assistance of 500,000 rupees reached one family, and when elections came, it was split or redistributed to gain votes. Why? Because if 500,000 was allocated, it could be given to one person, but they distributed it to secure more votes. As a result, only foundations were laid, leaving many villages incomplete. Now, instead of that narrow political approach, we are moving towards a systematic, scientifically planned urban development model. For each divisional secretariat division, as well as for the district as a whole, we are preparing comprehensive city plans. Accordingly, all future development will take place in line with these plans. During Sajid Premadasa's tenure, foundations were laid for houses, but the work largely remains incomplete at that stage. The reason was that the funds allocated at the time were insufficient to complete the houses. For example, if 100 houses were planned, about 1,000 foundations were laid. As a result, not a single house was fully completed. In the northern regions alone, about 5,800 houses had foundations laid, but the work was not carried through. This has become a major social issue. Across the country, foundations were laid for more than 60,000 houses, which now needs to be properly completed. We are currently compiling the records of the actual residents of these houses. Once this information is fully collected, we are ready to commence the construction of the most essential houses next year.
A farmer in Hinguragoda tragically lost his life after being caught in a fire that he had set to clear his land in preparation for the upcoming cultivation season.
N.K.H. Ananda, a devoted father of 3, residing in the Bogas Hamdia area of Hinguragoda. He tragically lost his life after being engulfed in a fire he had set to burn straw in his paddy field in Barahena, Hinguragoda. This heartbreaking incident occurred this afternoon. He had set fire to the straw with sincere intentions to prepare his land for the upcoming cultivation season. Police suspect that the blaze spread rapidly due to the prevailing extreme heat and strong winds, ultimately trapping him in the flames. A local resident witnessed the farmer caught in the fire and quickly alerted the others in the area. The body of the deceased was taken to the Polonnaruwa General Hospital for post-mortem examination.
The Association of Public Finance Accountants of Sri Lanka, the public sector wing of CA Sri Lanka, concluded its annual conference for 2025 today.
The CPFA and APFA Annual Conference 2025 concluded today with a resounding call for urgent and sustained public sector reforms to drive economic revival. This year's conference, themed Public Sector Reforms for Economic Revival, brought together experts and thought leaders to discuss the evolving role of public financial management in restoring fiscal discipline and accelerating national development. Dr. Harshana Surya Peruma, Secretary to the Treasury, emphasized the importance of reform-oriented leadership in the public sector.
I'm sure you would have heard in the news, IMF team, the next review is going on. So it's tight, very tight timelines. Officials of the government, in terms of implementing the policies, we are in a better place. One of the key reasons behind that achievements and the journey is the financial discipline. Present administration has implemented and diligently following up on those lines to make sure we will continue the journey better than how it was before. Similarly, when the enterprises, private sector is getting ready to delivery, there's a need to upscale the deliveries from the state, the expectation from the state as well. In one angle, there are several reforms that has taken place. Some of the reforms, we are in the middle of those reforms, and some of the changes to the legislations and certain reforms are expected also. These reforms are in terms of legislature, in terms of enhancements to the governance structure, enhancements to the reporting frameworks, etc. When state banks were appointed with independent directors, new mechanism has been established as part of the governance enhancement initiative, where we had a lot of support from the President, personally getting involved from the Institute, supporting us immensely along with the expert input. Select writers, the best who are suitable to hold those positions as independent directors of state-owned banks. There are many such reforms that have been implemented, and we are in the process of continuing to implement. Similarly, several key legislations relating to these reforms are currently being reviewed, being attended, and I'm sure some of them will. Our intention is to present them to Parliament before the end of this financial year to make sure we are ready for the next year to continue the journey of growth. Our expectation is to make sure we create a better future for citizens and for future generations.
The event saw record participation of around 400 delegates, including public finance professionals, policymakers and key stakeholders from across the country.
Today is the National Foundation Day of the Republic of Korea. The Korean Embassy in Sri Lanka hosted an event to celebrate this occasion in Colombo yesterday.
This year honours the 4,358th year of the founding of the Korean nation by Emperor Dangun, as well as the 80th anniversary of Korea's liberation. Marking this occasion, the Korean Embassy in Sri Lanka organised a celebration in Colombo yesterday.
The peaceful presidential election of June 2025 demonstrated the resilience and maturity of Korea's democratic system. The new Lee Jae-myung administration celebrated its first 70 days by announcing its national policy task, focusing on strengthening democratic governance, promoting inclusive development, and pursuing the peaceful relations with North Korea through dialogue and cooperation. This was the Aragalaya moment for Korean people that reaffirmed people's sovereignty in our country. I sincerely thank the Sri Lankan people for trust and support extended to Korean people during the trial. The shared experiences make our friendship even more special. This year marks 48 years of diplomatic relations between Korea and Sri Lanka. For nearly half a century, our two nations have built a deep and lasting partnerships. Sustaining this long-lasting partnership requires great efforts, and tourism also plays an important role in fostering mutual understanding and cultural exchanges. In 2025, 10,800 Korean tourists came to Sri Lanka. Korea takes great pride in creating a platform for bilateral and multilateral cooperation for peace and harmony.
Relations between Sri Lanka and Korea go back to over 1,000 years to the 5th century. In modern times, with the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1977, Sri Lanka and the Republic of Korea have continually strengthened its enduring friendship and broadened cooperation across numerous domains. Our bilateral relationship, founded on mutual interests and shared values, has evolved over the years to encompass political, economic, and people-to-people exchange as we celebrate 48 years of formal bilateral relationship this year. The government of the Republic of Korea has consistently been an invaluable development partner for Sri Lanka, supporting the Sri Lankan government's development priorities. Kamsahamnida. Thank you.
The celebration was attended by members of parliament, government officials, the diplomatic community and Korean expatriates.
The debut of the DJI Dock 3 in Sri Lanka took place in Colombo yesterday.
The DJI Dock 3 was officially launched yesterday, marking its first ever introduction to the country. The DJI Dock 3 is an advanced system built for fully autonomous operations across industries, including infrastructure monitoring, public safety, agriculture and disaster management. This launch aims to transform Sri Lanka's UAV ecosystem by introducing cutting-edge autonomous drone technology to support national security, environmental monitoring and commercial applications.
The Sri Lanka Institute of Information Technology, or SLIT, City University Alumni Night 2025 was held yesterday.
Lanka Institute of Information Technology hosted its SCU Alumni Night 2025 in Colombo yesterday. The evening was vibrant and memorable, featuring a live band performance that set the perfect atmosphere, along with raffle draws and exciting gift giveaways that kept the celebration lively. Guests had the opportunity to network and strengthen professional and personal ties, making it a night of music, laughter and meaningful connections. The special gathering brought together over 250 alumni, academic staff and distinguished guests, offering the perfect opportunity to reconnect and build new relationships with the SCU community.
In international news, US President Donald Trump has given Hamas a deadline to accept a US peace plan for Gaza or face, quote-unquote, all hell.
Trump said on Friday that an agreement must be reached by 6 p.m. Washington time on Sunday. The plan proposes an immediate end to fighting and the release within 72 hours of 20 living Israeli hostages held by Hamas, as well as the remains of hostages thought to be dead, in exchange for hundreds of detained Gazans. Trump wrote, quote, "If this last chance agreement is not reached, all hell, like no one has ever seen before, will break out against Hamas. There will be peace in the Middle East one way or the other," unquote. Mediators have made contact with the head of Hamas's military wing in Gaza, who has indicated he does not agree to the new US ceasefire plan. It is thought that some of Hamas's political leadership in Qatar are open to accepting it with adjustments, but have found their influence limited as they do not have control of the hostages held by the group. Another stumbling block for some in Hamas is that the plan requires them to hand over all of the hostages over the first 72 hours of the ceasefire, giving away their only bargaining chip. There are believed to be 48 hostages still being held in the Palestinian territory by the armed group, only 20 of whom are thought to be alive. The 20-point plan, agreed by Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and announced by both at the White House on Monday, also says Hamas will have no role in governing Gaza and leaves the door open for an eventual Palestinian state.
The United States government shutdown has entered a third day after the Senate failed to reach a deal on a crucial spending bill. The Senate floor was open for a short session on Thursday, but lawmakers observed Yom Kippur, the holiest day in Judaism, and did not hold any votes.
President Donald Trump has said he and his budget director will work out which Democrat agencies to cut as the US government shutdown approached its third day. President Donald Trump has said he and his budget director will work out which Democrat agencies to cut as the US government shutdown approached its third day. He suggested Republicans should seize the opportunity to clear out deadwood and gave no hints of concessions to Democratic demands that legislation funding the government should include healthcare insurance subsidies. Republicans and Democrats on Capitol Hill, meanwhile, continue to blame each other for failing to keep federal agencies open. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers are staying home, while others worked without pay. Some federal attractions closed to visitors, while others, including the Statue of Liberty, stayed open.
An uneasy calm hangs over Pakistan-administered Kashmir as the region marked the fourth day of the complete shutdown on Thursday, with at least 9 people killed during violent clashes between protesters and security forces. Dozens more have been injured on both sides as the standoff continues.
Communications blackout and deadly clashes grid the region as protesters present 38 demands to the government. At least 9 people have died in the violence. The Kashmir Valley is a picturesque yet deeply contentious Himalayas region over which Pakistan and India have fought multiple wars. The region is claimed in its entirety by India, while Pakistan claims all of Kashmir except the parts held by China, its ally. With a population exceeding 4 million, according to the 2017 census, Pakistan-administered Kashmir operates under a semi-autonomous system with its own Prime Minister and Legislative Assembly. The current unrest has roots in May 2023, when residents first took to the streets to protest against what they said were skyrocketing electricity bills. Simultaneously, complaints emerged about widespread flour smuggling and acute shortages in subsidized wheat supplies. The government, on its part, has meanwhile imposed a complete communications blackout, with residents cut off from mobile telecommunications and internet access since the 28th of September. In Muzaffarabad, the usually bustling markets have remained shuttered, while street vendors and public transport have vanished from the roads. The paralysis has left the region's roughly 4 million residents in a state of uncertainty.
Sarah Mullally was on Friday appointed as the new Archbishop of Canterbury, becoming the spiritual leader of 85 million Anglicans worldwide and the first woman to hold the role in its 1,400-year history.
Mullally was made the Bishop of London in 2018, the Church of England's third most senior bishop after the Archbishops of Canterbury and New York. Before her ordination, Mullally worked as a nurse at hospitals in London, going on to serve as Chief Nursing Officer for England. Mullally will preside over an institution struggling to stay relevant in a more secular nation, attempting to bridge divides between its more conservative and liberal wings, and fighting to reclaim trust after a child abuse cover-up scandal. Justin Welby, the former Archbishop, resigned last year over his failure to report John Smith, who was accused of physically and sexually abusing dozens of boys, including those he met at Christian camps in the 1970s and 1980s.
In your sports news, Maharaja Media Network has joined forces with Karma Fight League, also known as KFL, South Asia's biggest K1 fight league, to promote the fast-growing combat sports scene in Sri Lanka, home to more than 15,000 fighters.
Maharaja Media Network has announced a partnership with the Karma Fight League, or KFL, South Asia's largest K1 fight league, aiming to elevate the rapidly growing sport in Sri Lanka, which features over 15,000 fighters. The official ceremony took place today at the Maharaja Media Network headquarters in Braybrook Place, Colombo. The event was attended by high-profile representatives from both KFL and the Maharaja Media Network. Leading the official ceremony was Shavan Daniel, Group Director of the Capital Maharaja Group. He was joined by Maharaja Media Network's media leadership, including Yasarat Kamal Siri, CEO of MTV, Buddhi Vikramanayaka, COO of MBC, Chamik Roshan, Director of Promotions, and Manilal Fernando, Channel Head of Yes 101. The KFL delegation was represented by co-founders Ilham Hussain and Dayan Samarasekara, alongside Dinu Chalianage, Head of Operations, and Chamal Fonseca, Consultant, Marketing and Partnerships. Born in Sri Lanka, KFL is the country's first structured fight league, uniting disciplines such as karate, Muay Thai, boxing, kickboxing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under K1 rules. With international showcases in India, Nepal, Thailand, Iran, Germany and the USA, the league offers local fighters global exposure. The partnership reinforces the Maharaja Media Network's commitment to promote emerging sports in the country.
The match between Sri Lanka and Australia in the 2025 Women's Cricket World Cup will be held tomorrow at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo.
This will be Sri Lanka's second match in the 2025 Women's Cricket World Cup. The Sri Lanka team has been training for the match at the CCC grounds in Colombo. The match, to be held tomorrow at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo, will kick off at 3 p.m. A special feature of all matches held in Colombo during the tournament is that spectators will be granted free entry to the R. Premadasa Cricket Stadium. All matches can also be watched live on TV1, the official local broadcasting rights holder, and online via www.sirasatv.lk.
හොඳ සූදානමකින් ඉන්නවා. ඒ වගේම ඉන්දියානු තරගයෙන් පස්සේ අපි කණ්ඩායමක් විදිහට අපේ වැරදි අඩුපාඩු අපි කතා කරා. ඒකෙන් පස්සේ ඉතින් හෙට තරගයට හොඳ සූදානමකින් ඉන්න අපි ප්ලෑන්ස් හදාලා තියෙන්නේ. ඉතින් හරි වෙලාවට එක්සිකියුට් කරන්න තමයි ඒක බලාපොරොත්තු වෙන්නේ. හොඳ කණ්ඩායමක් වශයෙන් හොඳ සූදානමකින් ඉන්නේ හෙට තරගයේ ක්‍රීඩා කරන්න.
We leave you tonight with the skies of Colombo's Golf is lit up by a spectacular kite display.
Thank you for joining us on Primetime News tonight.
Good night.
Happy headlines.
A kite festival organised by the Art Society of Mahanama College, Colombo, was held today at the Golf Face Green. The festival, organised for the first time in line with the World Children's Day, saw the participation of the principal and the teaching staff as well. Many school children also joined the event.